if it was moving, it was a target. And we'd go down and try to tear it up, frankly. My name is Floyd Blair, and I was a P-47 pilot during World War II in Europe for 1 year. I was in combat. We arrived in England and at Liverpool. We rode a train down to South England called the New Forest area, and they had a lot of airfields they had constructed there. And so we got there early, first part of April, and we still didn't know what we were going to fly. And then all of a sudden they started bringing these P-47s in. So we spent April flying the airplanes and breaking in the engines and practicing formations. We went in combat on May 1. And all 48 airplanes, they had a group. And the first flight on May 1, we flew over, we took off and the group formed up and we flew across the channel to Paris and made a big sweeping turn and came back. And everybody, later everybody was kidding about how terrified they were crossing that channel, that all of a sudden they're over Europe and now there's people trying to kill you. So we flew from that point on. Our missions got more definitive and more down to earth, and we flew some escort missions, not many, but we did. Our job is to fly over Omaha and Utah Beach and keep the Luftwaffe from coming down on these ground troops, because they're going to have a hard enough time as it is. And he said, if of course we didn't know what was going to happen, and neither did he. But he said, if we're attacked, if you run out of ammunition in a fight, he said, you ram the guy, because we're not going to let them get on that beach. I'm talking about the Germans go down and bomb and strafe those people. Well, like I've told people before, if that doesn't get your attention, nothing will. And he was serious too. There were 4 missions assigned to the air support. And I flew the 2nd and the 4th mission that day. And we took off first time about, I would say 10 o'clock in the morning and flew over, and I'd never seen as many ships in my life as that channel looked like it was full of ships. And but we got over there and we flew. Not only, but we didn't see any Germans, but nobody else did. They didn't show up. Thank God for that. But I'd never seen a big battleship in my life up until then. And I was looking down at one of them, and the whole side of the ship just was one solid mass of flame. And I thought, oh my goodness, that all those poor sailors going to die from it. It's a huge ship. What I didn't know, it was a broadside. They'd fired all their guns at once. and the flame from the cannons on those ships looked like the whole side blew up, but when the smoke cleared, the air boat was still there. We had a front row seat at this horrible, horrible thing. I hope no human being ever has to do that again. Because you could look down and see those poor guys go. Well, we weren't that high, you know. We were flying around 12,000 feet. And you could tell they were having a horrible time where the Americans were. Where the English and the Canadians were, it wasn't that bad, comparatively speaking. That night landing on the 6th, for me, I'll never forget that. Is it got to the point where it's obvious that the Germans were pulling back. They kept us busy making ground support missions and helping the infantry and the tanks do their job. When they would give us an assignment, we would go and find a target. They'd mark the target, and also they put up cerise panels on the top of trucks and tanks to indicate the bomb line, which meant that anything, for example, on this side of the bomb line was American. Over there, you could do anything you wanted to if they gave you something to shoot at. So we would, in generalities, a broad sweep of the thing, what happened, we would go down and we'd start shooting as soon as we got to a reasonable altitude where we could see it. And that was two reasons: kill Germans if they were happened to be in, or wipe out the flak. Because I'll tell you, the Germans had 20 millimeters, 40 millimeters, and 88s that they'd shoot at you. And the larger the number, the higher they'd be shooting. For example, a 20 millimeter, they'd fire at that, you'd have to be pretty low for them to shoot that at you, and 40s sort of medium, and the rest of it is the 88s were the higher ones. For example, if they were a pre-selected target, we would be told in the briefing the map coordinates, and most of the time it had a picture of what it looked like. If not, then they would assign us a geographical area with coordinates, like you're to patrol between here and here, and then you would contact the ground controller, and the ground controller would tell you if he had anything request for some obstacle that was in the way. And if he didn't, then they would turn you loose in this area, and we would look for anything that moved, and we would, unfortunately, we didn't have time to check the credentials, so if it was moving, it was a target, and we'd go down and try to tear it up, frankly. And I'm sure that there were a lot of casualties that probably shouldn't have happened, but a lot of things happen in war should have happened. We were flying, this was during the Battle of Aachen, and we were flying and we were down below 10,000 feet. And they had told us about these tanks, and I could see them. And I rolled over, and my wingman went with me. And there were a lot of us in the air that day. And I rolled the airplane to get aim more for the tanks and pulled out. Literally, I was under 100 feet. I was going almost 500 miles an hour. And I just barely made it. My wingman flew straight in the ground. And that still bothers me to this day. If you read the official record, everybody said he got hit by flak, but I know better than that. I shouldn't tell you that, but I do. I knew I was going to die. And I pulled back on that stick as hard as I could. I went in a high-speed stall, to be honest with you. And I said, oh, God, don't let it happen. And I bet I wasn't 50 feet off the ground flying into Germany. And I was so terrified, I flew probably 5 miles before I pulled up again. And on the way back, this guy that I flew with a lot, his name was Charles Lutman, I pulled up on his wing, and of course, I didn't call him because he didn't, the Germans would listen to everything we said. And I pointed over to where this guy was supposed to be, and I'll never forget what he did. He just put his finger down, and I knew he went in.